What's up, YouTube? Before I get into the video, let me remind you, if you like my content, hit that like and subscribe button. And also, if you feel the need to support me, hit me up on my Patreon at patreon.com/uncommonramen, capital U, capital R. I do all this in my free time, so any amount of support helps me bring more of this content to you more often. Okay, today we're going to look at Obyra Dreaming Duelist. This is a fairy deck. We kind of want to do things on our opponent's turn. You'll see that as we go through. Alright, we're going to start with Obyra, the commander, Dreaming Duelist. This is 1 blue, 1 black for a 2/2. Flash flying, whenever another fairy enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses 1 life. So we're going to play fairies to kind of aristocrat our opponents, and yeah. So we're going to take a look at creatures first. We've got Alayla, Cunning Conqueror, which creates fairy tokens and also goads your opponent's creatures. I think it's very important in this deck. Archmage of Echoes lets you copy fairy spells, and this includes tribal spells too, so very cool. Brazen Borrower can bounce something and then is just a flying body afterward. Cloud of Faeries, it's kind of free to play. You can also cycle it. Fairy Bladecrafter slowly gets bigger as fairies get cast, and I think it's when they deal damage. And if it dies, deals damage equal to the power of the creature. Fairy Dream Thief, it's just a good card. Fairy Formation creates fairy tokens. Fairy Harbinger is a tutor for fairies. Fairy Mastermind allows you to take advantage of second draws per turn, specifically of your opponent's stuff, which allows you to draw cards. Fairy Seer. Fairy Vandal, another one that takes advantage of if a second card is drawn, in this case for you. Glenalendra Archmage, which has Persist and can counter non-creature spells, so very cool card. Glenalendra Liege, which is a lord for blue and black creatures. Halo Forger, which allows you to recast specifically instant sorceries from your graveyard. Hypnotic Sprite, which again is a counterspell, but also just a flying body. Likeness Looter, which is a looter and can also copy something. Malleable Imposter, again, enters as a copy of something, but stays a fairy, has flash and flying, so again, we can play this on other turns. Mocking Sprite, which reduces the cost of our instant sorceries. Nimrus Una's Trickster, also flash flying, and again, specifically is looking for when you're casting things on your opponent's turns, and allows you to do kind of a curated draw. Una, Queen of the Fae, creates fairy tokens. Picklock Prankster. Quickling, which allows you to reuse ETB abilities at least one time. Rankle, which is just a good card. Just the ability to, I think it's when it deals combat damage, to force your opponents to discard a card or sacrifice a creature, or even getting the draw minus life thing. Very cool. Scion of Una, again with flash and flying, but this is also a lord, and it gives your fairy shroud, which means no targeting. Shadow Puppeteers, which in this deck, when everything has flying, especially with the tokens, being able to take advantage of the 4/4 body can be very deadly for your opponents. It also enters with 2 tokens, so that's pretty cool. Sower of Temptation allows you to take control of something until Sower of Temptation dies. Spellscorn Coven. This is another kind of counterspell, and then again a flying body. Spellstutter Sprite, a counterspell that looks for tribe. Talion Kindly Lord, which is essentially taking advantage of whatever your opponents are casting the most of as far as mana value, power and toughness, just numeric wise. So if your opponents are casting lots of 2s, this helps you take advantage of that. And then we got Tegwill, Duke of Splendor. This is another Lord, and it helps you to rebuild your hand if your fairies die. Okay, next up is Instants. Okay. Arcane Denial, which is a counterspell that allows you to draw cards, but also your opponent draws cards. Brainstorm, counterspell. Fairy Fencing, which is a removal spell that gets better with fairies. Fairy Trickery, which is a counterspell that gets better with fairies. Frantic Search, Go for the Throat. Keep Watch allows you to draw cards for each attacking creature. Opt. Perplexing Test, which can be, depending on if you have a lot of tokens in play, it can be a board wipe for tokens or non-tokens. Reality Shift, Snap, and Spell Stutter, which is another counterspell that looks for fairies. Next up is Sorceries. We're going to start with Distant Melody, another one of those where it draws cards, but specifically in this case, draws cards equal to the number of whatever creature type you choose. Fairy Slumber Party, which is a board wipe that creates fairies depending on the number of players whose creatures got bounced. Kindred Dominance, which is a one-sided board wipe. You choose a creature type, everything else dies. Notorious Throng, which can help bring in fairy tokens, but also, if you cast it for the Prowl cost, gives you an extra turn. Stolen by the Fae is another, I guess you could say, spot removal that creates fairy tokens. And then Tegwell's Scorning, which is another board wipe that you can cast it, I believe, at instant speed? Yeah, you can cast this at instant speed, and it destroys all creatures, but it creates fairy tokens for you. Alright, for artifacts, we got Arcane Signet, Dimir Signet, Felwar Stone, Herald's Horn, which in this case you call fairies. It reduces the cost of fairies and possibly allows you to draw extra cards per turn. Mind Stone, Misleading Signpost, which is a rock that can be cast at flash speed and redirects an attacker. Soul Ring, and Talisman of Dominance. Okay, next up is enchantments. I'm going to start with Bitter Blossom, which just creates more fairy tokens. We got Fairy Tauntings, which again takes advantage of playing on your opponent's turn. In this case, it's going to slowly but surely drain them. It's another Aristocrats type thing. Favorable Winds, which is a anthem for flying creatures. Feywild Visitor, which just creates more fairy tokens, but in this case, it's fairy dragon tokens. Gravitational Shift, which is going to what's the word I'm looking for? It's going to benefit you for having flying. It's also going to take away from creatures that don't have flying. Kindred Discovery, which just draws cards for you. Leyline of Anticipation, which helps you get flash on everything, allowing you to really take advantage of casting things on your opponent's turn as opposed to your own. Reconnaissance Mission, another way to draw cards. And Reflections of Lityara, which just helps you copy your fairies as they're entering. Next, we're going to look at non-basic lands, which starts with Bojuka Bog, which enters tapped, taps for black, and blanks one of your opponent's graveyards. Choked Estuary, which is a reveal land for blue-black. Clearwater Pathway, which is an MDFC for blue-black. Command Tower, taps for commander identity. Dimir Aqueduct, which is a bounce land for blue-black. Drowned Catacombs is a check land for blue-black. Exotic Orchard, which taps for whatever your opponent's lands tap for. Fairy Conclave, which enters tapped, taps for blue, and you can turn it into a fairy until end of turn. Morphic Pool, which is a crowd land for blue-black. Path of Ancestry, which enters tapped, and you can tap it for any mana in your color identity, and if you cast a creature that shares a type with your commander, you get to scry. Reliquary Tower, You have no maximum hand size, and it taps for colorless. Secluded Glen, which is a tribal land for fairies that's blue-black. Shipwreck Marsh, a check land for blue-black. Sunken Hollow, which is another check land for blue-black with basic land typings. Tainted Isle, which taps for colorless, or it taps for blue-black if you have a swamp in play. And Watery Grave, which is a shock land for blue-black with basic land types. And then finally, we're going to look at basic lands. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 islands, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 swamps. So that is the Obyra deck tech. As you can see through the cards here, what we're trying to do is try and play on our opponent's turn as much as possible. We have a bunch of ways of drawing cards. We have a bunch of things that take advantage of the fact that we're going to have fairies in play. We have tons and tons of things that create fairy tokens to kind of help fill out the board. And we're trying to run board wipes that are more one-sided to sort of allow for an easier win. Everything in here, I think everything in here, I might have been wrong, but almost everything in here has flying. So we have, things like gravitational shift that help benefit us for having flying. There's several lords in here as well. Yeah. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Keep it positive. I will remove negative comments. Also, if you want me to go back to reading the cards, let me know as well. I'm trying this out for now to see what everyone thinks. Yeah, and until next time, guys. Peace.